You know, right. So the podcast that uncovers the origin stories of some of the biggest names in sports, media, entrepreneurship, entertainment, and so much more. Nick Durst here along with Joe Calabrese. And Joe, our guest today is going to have our listeners rejoicing after listening to this episode.
Nick loves his puns, by the way. Before we give a proper introduction, played in majors over the course of 14 years, played for 8 different teams, and he was an all-star. Had a great career. We're going to have a great interview with him now. We welcome Matt Joyce to the show. Matt, how you doing today?
What's up, fellas? I'm amazing. Thanks for having me. And yes, I did trick them 1 year to make the All-Star team. So, that was a blast. And the All-Star game was actually in Arizona. Funny because I was just watching the highlights. Bryce Harper just hit his 300th home run. And I remember playing with him in the Phillies in 2020 and 2021. And I was like, man, I remember when you were 17 years old hanging out at the All-Star game like a little kid. And I'm like, who is this little kid that's, a superstar already before he even makes it to the big leagues? And here we are 300 home runs later. And of course, well-deserved.
Crazy, yeah. He was all that hype as a 17-year-old. Him and Strasburg drafted back-to-back years. Strasburg retired already. But since you mentioned home runs real quick, Matt, of all the active players right now, who do you think is going to end up with the most career home runs?
Oh, man, that's a really tough question, man. I would have to really think through that.
You gotta factor in health, obviously.
Of course. I mean,
well, we know we'll take out Miguel Cabrera.
I was going to say, you really have to, look at Miggy as the front runner there because he's got over 500 home runs.
Right.
And I think Bryce might be able to get there, but he's had a lot of lower back issues. I think that's going to affect him. Obviously, you look at the unicorn, Ohtani, who's, he's one of the best of all time. So it's just a matter of staying healthy. You look at somebody like Trout, same thing. These guys are just so explosive and so strong that their bodies can only take so much. You know what I mean? So if one of those guys, Ohtani and Trout.
I would say maybe Pete Alonso. Just built for the home runs, not even wear and tear on his swings. Pretty healthy, except the fact that he keeps getting beamed and getting taken out of games.
Spoken like a true Mets fan right there.
You should only know, Matt. You should only know. Quick nugget. Trout's got 368, right? So with all the injuries, let's say he stays relatively healthier, close to the latter portion of his career. He's got an outside shot at 500. So,
yeah,
we'll see. Harper also has to stay healthy. Aaron Judge too. If Nick's going to mention Alonso, I'm going to mention Judge in here. But when you think about Harper, you think about all those videos of him blasting the ball with an aluminum bat as a teenager. That video in St. Pete, actually, where you used to play. So we'll take you back to your teenage days, your days before college, heading into college. You went to Florida Southern.
Yep.
So what was the decision process like to go there and eventually pursue a professional career in baseball?
Yeah, I don't think I was really this phenom. I think I was a talented player, always like top 3 or 4 in every team that I played in, as far as talent wise. So I could hit a little bit, right? I had a good swing. It was the lefty smooth swing. And so I had some opportunities to go play in college. Most of the D1 schools, like UCF, USF, they were like 30% scholarships. I was a kid. I didn't really have any money. My dad was, blue collar, drove a truck. It was like, hey, you get a scholarship, college is kind of on you. And so I wanted to go to a good school. There was conversations with scouts about getting drafted, and that kind of turned into, hey, if it's not life-changing money in the first round or two, then it doesn't really make sense. I felt like I needed to develop. I felt like I wanted a good education. So it really came down to, hey, Florida Southern had a full ride. University of Tampa had a full ride. I wanted to stay pretty local just because my dad used to always come out to my games. The ability to stay close to friends and family, I think, was really important for me. And then, so it was UT, Florida Southern, and then Manatee Community College had a full ride. So it was really between those three for me. And UT, University of Tampa, ended up withdrawing their offer like 10 days before I signed. And I probably would have gone to UT. And so, my dad was pretty heated. And every time, so I obviously signed up Florida Southern. And every time we played University of Tampa, my dad used to chirp at Urso and let those guys know that they made a big mistake. And obviously, I always tried to make them pay too. So, but Florida Southern was great. We ended up winning the whole thing. Division II College World Series my junior year, getting drafted by the Tigers in 12th round, and then working the way through the minor leagues.
So, Matt, Joe's been toying with this for a few years now about moving to Florida, moving to the Tampa area. So things are holding him back, but maybe you could sell him on why he should make the move from Jersey City down to Florida.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and bash Jersey City. So I go up to Newark, I fly into Newark. My mom lives up in Burger Field. MLB Studios is in Secaucus, which I'm flying out later today to do the Friday Night Baseball for Apple TV. But Jersey is great, obviously close to New York, and there's a lot going on. I just think for me, growing up in Tampa, obviously, I wanted to be close to friends and family. Tampa was this area that was up and coming, right? You have a lot of potential and a lot of opportunity for growth. And that's what you've seen over the last 5 to 10 years is the crazy amount of growth. You look at downtown Tampa and what Jeff Vinnick has been able to do and how good the Lightning have been, and then developing, 4 or 5 high rises in the middle of downtown and bringing the first 5-star hotel in the Addition with a handful of really good restaurants right around that area. Sparkman, where Channelside was, really got redeveloped into just a really cool area. It used to be a lot of bars, and now it's like, we have a fitness studio in there, F45, that does really well. There's a couple other fitness, Pilates and yoga and stuff like that. But you also still have, some restaurants and some bars. And so it's like a nice mix of different amenities. And then again, you have so many different things going on. You can get in the water if you like to fish. You can go play golf. Obviously, during the summer, you probably don't want to go play golf unless it's at Top Golf, which, Top Golf is down here. So, for me, I felt like it just, the options and the growth, I think, were hard to match, as well as what the bang for the buck, right? What you get for the dollar. And obviously, you've seen the prices go up, a lot higher over the last few years. But at the end of the day, if that doesn't sell you, my final say will be, I'll talk to you in December when it's 30 degrees out and we're sitting here at 70 degrees in Tampa. And
it gets cool during the night over there. It gets into the 40s.
Yeah, we'll see how you feel when it's 30 degrees up in Jersey and we're out, enjoying the
Joe's got
weather.
his Tampa ties, though. He's got a family down there. So
okay.
They Wesley Chapel.
Okay. Yep. Got some family over there.
Yeah. Next time Joe's down in Tampa, maybe you guys get together. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But
let me know.
We were just talking about your high school and college career. When did you realize that you could potentially be drafted, and how did that realization happen? Did somebody tell you? Was it a scout? How did that happen for you?
Yeah, I think there was interest in high school, right? So I talked to scouts, went through that whole process of filling out questionnaires. So I think they were aware of me. And then obviously you're not getting drafted if you go to a 4-year school until your junior year. So it was like, hey, just go out and play and focus on playing in school. And so freshman, sophomore year, I had great years. My junior year, I kind of set the expectation and bar pretty high, where it was like, oh, you're going to break the home run record as a junior, because I hit so well as a sophomore. And of course, you try to hit home runs, it doesn't work for you. So I ended up having an okay year. I hit right around 300 and hit some home runs and stuff like that, but it wasn't, what I was supposed to do. And so I remember, there was an opportunity, there was a chance to get drafted, and I know there was interest. And I had some conversations with some scouts along the way, filled out another questionnaire. And I remember, as a sophomore, telling one of the professors that work with you, where it's like, hey, what do you want your major to be? What do you want to do after school? And I remember telling him like, hey, I want to go play baseball. I want to get drafted. And the professor was just like, I don't think that's such a good idea. The chance of you getting drafted really isn't that great, and just completely crushed my dreams. And I just remember sitting there and walking away like, man, did this guy talk to a scout or something? Like, is there something I don't know? Like, do I not have a chance of getting drafted? And so of course, I was just like, whatever, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm gonna show him. And sure enough, again, we had a handful of guys. We had a really good team. We had like 30 something scouts the first game of the season, my junior year, because we had I think we had 7 guys drafted from that team. And so obviously when you have a good team, you have that many talented players, obviously it helps to draw scouts out. And then, I hit an opposite field home run the first day. And so obviously that helps your chances when you play well in front of the scouts. And then, yeah. So, I mean, when the draft comes, they're like, yeah, you're going to go in the top 5 rounds. Oh, you're going to go in 3rd round. You never know. Like they don't know, you know what I mean? And so the draft's going. And then I heard, they gave me a call on the second day just saying, hey, would you sign in the 12th round? And of course I was like, yeah, let's go. I'm ready. So from there you go. From there, it's a grind. Okay. Right. The minor leagues is the ultimate grind.
So usually we always ask in our interviews our signature question, which is, what is your right moment, a time or place where you speaking to somebody, they're offering advice, they're like, you're crazy, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway. And ultimately you see that I'm right. That for you, it's got to be that college professor who was doubting you. So you showed off, and then you get drafted by the Detroit Tigers. So first, what was the euphoria like to be drafted? And then from there, how quickly did that wear off when you report to spring training and you do the extended spring training, which is a grind? And then eventually you start off in the New York Penn League. So you definitely have come through Staten Island, where we lived, to play the Staten Island Yankees at the time. Nice background there, backdrop, MCU Park, where the Cyclones play, one of the nicer stadiums. But the rest of the Penn League, from my knowledge, is pretty not that nice. So your time in the Penn League, and then just, you mentioned it, the total grind of the minor leagues, and why people don't really realize just how hard it is to live on a daily basis, let alone doing this stuff on the field.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there. First, when I got drafted, it was you're excited, right? Like me and my dad, I think kind of lived vicariously through me. So it was, this moment for both of us. I remember working in the cages when you're growing up, and him throwing to me and doing the extra work, and obviously, coaching me and yelling at me that I'm swinging like a girl and stuff like that. So, that was it was a cool moment where, obviously gave my dad a hug. It's like, hey, here's your shot, go make the most of it. Good luck. It's on you. And so that was cool. That was special. Obviously showing up, the first couple of days, you're excited. Everything's new and fresh. And so you kind of go through that spring training for a few weeks. You go into the New York Penn League again, season starts, you're fresh, you're excited. And then reality, the monotony of playing day after day really settles in. And to your point, New York Penn League was rough. Okay. I remember playing the outfield and rolling my ankle a couple times just because the field was so lumpy, getting balls hit right at me. And I have to dive to the side because it just kicks to the right, just like crazy stuff. And you're taking, long bus rides through the minor leagues. It's 12-hour bus rides. You're staying in crappy hotels. You have a roommate that snores, and you're making, nothing. Like, I remember I signed for $60K as my signing bonus. Obviously taxes take that out. You got to pay for your car because your parents are helping you with a car. So I was driving around a 99 Honda Civic, back and forth up north every season. And it was just, a lot of that money just went to living costs, just being able to, so by the time I get to the big leagues, everything that I signed for was gone because they don't pay you enough in the minor leagues. And obviously nowadays they've kind of made some adjustments where they help the players with housing and stuff like that, which I think is huge. But that's why I tell people it's the ultimate grind because, you're playing maybe you play in front of 200 people, maybe you'll play in front of 2,000, and there's not big crowds. It's not exciting. It's just, day after day, you got to get the reps, you got to play the games, and you got to grind through it. And the guys that aren't able to be disciplined and make the sacrifice, they weed themselves out. They'll go out and they'll party, they'll drink and do this. They don't show up. They didn't put in the extra work. And for me, that's what I wanted to do. So I was willing to make the sacrifice and be disciplined. And obviously, hey, you're still going to go pick your spots where, hey, have day off tomorrow. Let's go have a couple drinks with the boys or something like that. But, there's just some guys that didn't have the discipline.
Give us someone who you are friends with, but was a terrible person that you had to room with throughout your course of the minors.
Oh man. Yeah. It's funny because like every year you get this it's almost like you feel like there's a new batch of guys that you're with. So it's like, again, I was very fortunate to play 3 years in a month before getting called up, and I was up and down for the first couple of years. And then once you get to the big leagues, again, I was very fortunate to just hang around the big leagues for a long time, but I played with so many different players. I don't remember rooming with guys that I didn't like. It was just, you're rooming with another guy, you know what I mean? So it's like, hey, if they go out and they get drunk, they're coming home at 2 and they're being loud, maybe 3 or something like that. And maybe they bring, some girl home. I don't know. Or, again, maybe they're snoring and you're like, oh my God, please. But it was still, my teammates and still, there wasn't ever a time where I was like, man, this guy, I hate this guy. So I can't, call anybody out like that, but just moments where you get annoyed from living with somebody else is really what it comes down to.
So let's talk about your major league debut. You were very good in AAA in Toledo in 2008, and then eventually you got called up to the show. You got acclimated very fast. You had a very, very good first season, rookie season. So what was it like starting that season, knowing that you were hitting the ball well? When did you have a realistic chance of making the big league roster? And once you got there, how hard was it between AAA and the majors to actually, get acclimated? Because we know a lot of people, they do good their first seasons, and then there's a sophomore slump, and you kind of dip from there. But again, you were right out of the gate for a pretty good team the 2 years before.
Yeah. The game adjusts to you really fast. And especially even nowadays where they have a lot of information and a ton of data, even on the guys in the minor leagues. So before, when I was coming up, it was like, hey, they didn't really know me. So they were like, let's attack them, go right at them with fastballs. And I was a good fastball hitter. So I did really well when I first got called up, and then started to struggle as they started to throw a lot more off speed. But for me, I didn't realize how close I was until about AAA. I didn't realize, hey, I was one step away. I was right there knocking on the door to make the big league team until I was in AAA, and I was, probably 3 weeks in and playing really well. The Tigers, the team at that time in 2008 were stacked. And this was a team that was predicted to win the World Series. And you look at Pudge, they had Pudge behind the plate, young Miggy Cabrera, Magglio Ordonez, who was just crushing it, right? Like they had a young Granderson, they had a young Verlander, right? This team was stacked. And so Jock Jones was in left, and he was struggling the first month. And obviously that team was really underperforming, and they were looking for an answer. And you had Leland, who was a skip, Leland's hard nosed, you got to play the game the right way. But he also was one of those managers that you love to play for because, he'll take care of his guys. And so for me, again, I was about a month into the season. I got called up on Cinco de Mayo, so May 5th. I remember Lance Parrish, calling me in the office, and again, I was hitting, I don't know, 320 something, and had like 8 home runs the first month. I was just crushing it. And I remember Leland came down for a game. I didn't know he was there, but I heard this later, and I ended up hitting like 2 home runs in that game. So that'll kind of help your cause, And so Lance Parrish called me in the office. I had a game where I hit a couple balls hard, but I didn't have anything to show for it. And he was like, Matt, you had a couple of hard hit balls, but we felt like you could have ran them out a little bit better. so we're going to have to make a move. And I'm like, what? You're going to send me down because I didn't run out the balls? I'm raking over here. And he's like, so we're going to call you up tonight. You're starting in left field for the Tigers. And, you better get your stuff and get there and go. You're playing the Red Sox. And so, I was driving like 95, 100 miles an hour on the interstate to get there to the field. And we were facing Dice K on Thursday night baseball. So I went from playing in front of 2,000 people to, it was a sold out crowd, 40,000 in the stands, and Thursday night baseball. So there was probably millions of people watching on TV. And so I remember almost falling when I was running out to the outfield because I couldn't feel my legs. I was so amped up. I had so much adrenaline. I did fine. I mean, I drew a walk my first at bat and lined out later in the game. The next game, I got like a pinch hit, my first hit against Julian Tavares. And then the next series, my dad flew up. He was having health issues, it was really cool because, he came to a lot of minor league games, never got to see me hit a home run. And then my first at bat in front of my dad in the big leagues, I hit a home run, which was really cool, a really special moment. And then from there, it was, I got sent down a couple months into the season. That's a straight dagger to your heart where you're like, hey, I accomplished my dream. I'm here. And then they send you down and you're like, it's hard. It's hard to go back down. Back to AAA, back to the minor leagues, long bus rides, right? All that stuff. When you get a little spoiled, you get really spoiled in the big leagues. So it's a whirlwind. The first couple of years, most guys are up and down, and you got to fight like hell to stay there.
So very quickly, you were traded to your hometown team, the Rays. You're traded for Edwin Jackson, who's probably one of the only guys in Major League history who's played for more teams than you did.
Yeah.
Played for like 15 teams, at least half the league.
It's crazy.
But yeah, you played about 5 seasons for Tampa. So what was it like essentially playing for your hometown team, knowing the area, playing in front of those fans? And they made the World Series in 08. So again, you have a propensity early in your career for joining teams that had recently been in the World Series and had been in more of a winning situation than a losing situation. So describe your tenure with the Rays.
Yeah. I remember going, they with the Tigers, they were like, hey, we want you to work on hitting off speed because obviously I was a good fastball hitter and struggled with the off speed. And so they wanted me to go play winter ball. And so I was like, man, I just played a full season. I don't want to go play anymore, right? Like I want to go home and enjoy my off season with my friends and family. And so, of course, like at that point, you don't have a say. You're like, if the big league club wants me to go play winter ball, I'm going to go play winter ball. So I went and played in Mexico. And they throw a ton of off speed. It's a good league to go play in, and a good experience. Obviously, it's Mexico, so you got to take that into consideration. But I remember getting a call from my agent just saying, "Hey, man, good news. You're coming home," or you're like you're. I forget how he worded it, but it essentially in my mind I was like, "Oh my God, thank God I get to leave. I don't have to play here in Mexico anymore, and I get to come home." In reality, he was like, "No, you got traded to Tampa to the Rays. Like you still got some time. You got to play in Mexico, but you're gonna play at home." And so that was cool. I mean, it was exciting. I remember getting obviously. Kind of acclimated with the Rays, and it was a situation where I was the hometown kid, grew up in Tampa, obviously Armwood High School, Florida Southern College. Every game there was somebody from high school, college. I remember I had people coming up, "Hey, I played softball with your dad," right? Like every game there was somebody in the stands that I felt like knew me and was rooting for me. And it was really cool to have that aspect of it, but it was also really challenging because everybody wanted something: hats, tickets, jerseys, sign this, come do this. We need you here. And so it became a point where I had to learn how to say no because, hey, I have a job to do, right? Like I have to play every single day, and you're tired, you're exhausted, you're sore. And the scheduling is very demanding. So, God, man, I had to tell my family, like, you guys got to say no, right? Like I was paying $10,000 in tickets every year just to have other people come watch me play. It's like, it's crazy. But obviously I always wanted to, make sure everybody, you know, you never really know. It was like the first time somebody met you. And so like, I always wanted to make a good first impression. And so I was raised to where, treat other people how you want to be treated. Right. And so I always tried to take the time and was very, I tried to be respectful towards anybody that wanted my time with, not sacrificing, the job that I had to do. So it was honestly one of my favorite times in my career, and some of the most memorable memories, some of the coolest memories on a baseball field that I've had. And yeah, very, very thankful for that experience.
So after spending this period of time with the Rays, you bounced around the Angels, the Pirates, the A's, the Braves, the Marlins, the Phillies. But no matter where you went, you maintained that certain level of production that you need to stay in the majors. You were a productive player everywhere you went. So just describe the grind of moving from city to city, living accommodations, finding places to go out and eat, and ultimately, live your life, because it's part of the process, it's part of the job, it's part of being a professional. But sometimes people don't necessarily realize how often you guys are bouncing around and traveling. So what was that like?
Yeah, that comes with the territory. It's funny because in the minor leagues, the first time, and really the first couple times you go and play professional ball, you get really homesick because you're just not used to being away from home for that long. And you kind of have to figure it out. You're just like, hey, this is what you do. This is the season. This is what you sign up for. And you're going to go through stretches where you're not playing well and you just want to go home, right? Like you don't want to be there anymore. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable because your body hurts, you're sore, you're performing on a nightly basis. And oh, by the way, you're not playing well. Like it's not fun when you suck, right? So, the hardest part, I would say, in my career was when I left Tampa. I went to play for the Angels in 2015. And I trained really hard. I worked my ass off in the off season. I gained weight. I was like 215 and just like strong as I've ever been. And I really, that was my free agent year. I really wanted to set the tone. I wanted to put up some big numbers. And I had a fantastic spring training. And I remember like going to a bigger bat and it was just like a little bit longer. It was heavier and I just felt strong. And so I tore it up in spring training. And then when the season came around, I just absolutely stunk, right? Like my swing got really long. I had a bigger leg kick, so my timing was off. When the season starts, they're not just pumping you. Sorry, excuse me. They're not just pumping you fastballs. They're like, hey, they're pitching. They're like, hey, we know this guy. We're going to shift on him. We're going to throw him off speed, right? I had a track record. And so obviously, again, the game knows you. They're not just going to like lay it in there for you. And so I stunk it up in 2015 with the Angels. And I ended up leaving that year with concussion because there was a fly ball in it's kind of like the Bermuda Triangle where third base is running out, shortstop's running out, and it's in short left field. And so I was running in and it was in between ball. And I remember looking down at my shortstop, Eric Ibar, and I tried to call it the last second. He didn't stop. And so I kind of leaned back and put my arms up to try to block my face. And he ended up kneeing me in the chin and knocking me out cold on the field. And I was unconscious and I had a concussion, had to come off the field, and they shut me down. And so that was kind of the end of my season in August, right in the beginning of August. And again, I had a really rough year. And so I had to go play in Dominican. I had to go play in winter ball again. You're playing, a whole season, all these games, you're going through the grind. And then in the off season, you're like, man, I just want to rest and relax and go catch up with friends and family. But you didn't play well. And in order for you to have another opportunity, you still have to go show teams that you can do it, that you're still a talented player and you deserve to be in the big leagues. And so I went and played in Dominican. And honestly, it was a great experience. Again, there's a lot of talent down there. I remember the lights were darker, so it was harder to see the ball. And you got these guys slinging at 96, 98 miles an hour. And sometimes the ball's dark and you're like, please, God, don't hit me in the face, And yeah, it's obviously it's a different world. It's a third world country, and you're staying in kind of a motel-ish. It's just purely play baseball and work your way back to another opportunity to the big leagues, in which kind of turned into playing for the Pirates. I had a 1-year deal with the Pirates, played really well, worked my butt off, made some nice adjustments, and then earned a 2-year deal at Oakland, and then continued to bounce around the league, and really kind of turned into more of like that pinch hit role player. But yeah, I mean, again, it's for the people that I have these conversations with, I tell them it's the ultimate roller coaster, where I've had some of the highest highs and the lowest lows, and you just try to ride the roller coaster and not get too high and not get too low, and straight work your ass off and try to figure out how to stay there.
So is the Oakland Coliseum as bad as we see and hear it is? And also,
Yes.
what's
Yes.
what must have been an awful lot clubhouse then? And what's the worst or the most brutal fan base to play in front of, either as a hometown player or as a visiting player?
Yeah, so Philly was tough for me. It was the last year of my career, and I was pinch hitting 2 times a week. And so you don't have any timing, you don't have any feel of your swing. I'm not comfortable, right? You're getting thrown in the fire. And again, like, people knew me, teams knew me. So they're not like, hey, challenge them with fastballs. They're like, no, it's going to shift. We're going to do the shift, and we're going to throw them change ups and off speed. And so, I had a really tough year, and Philly, you guys know, the fans are just relentless, right? If you're not playing well, they're going to let you know. So I had a hard time in Philly. I wasn't that big a fan. And again, it's just not fun when you're not playing well. And so, yeah, it was one of those situations, you do your best. Sometimes you get your ass kicked. And that was one of the cases. And then the next year, baseball had the lockout. A lot of free agents got pushed out. Some guys went and played independent ball. I originally said yes to go play independent ball. And then my body was over it. It's 37. They don't pay you anything. It's like going back to the minor leagues. You don't make a lot. I had, my young daughter, we had a handful of the F45 gyms. And so it was just time to kind of turn the page. But going back to your first question, yes, the Oakland Coliseum was terrible. There was a lot of minor league ballparks that were better than the Coliseum. And God, I just remember hearing stories of like the sewage plumbing backing up, in the clubhouse, and you're just like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Was there like a vending machine? You had to pay for your own drinks? Like in the
No,
money?
we didn't have a vending machine. It was just done. It was like dungy, like dingy, and kind of gross. But it was also one of those periods where we had such a great group of guys that, again, I still have some of the best memories from. I ended up doing the DJ. I was the DJ on the bus.
Okay.
And my nickname, my stage name, was DJ SS, right? And so my nickname kind of was Sweet Swinging. And I remember the guys saying, "Hey, what's the SS stand for?" And I used to tell them, it depends what day you catch me, right? Sometimes it's sweet swinging, sometimes it's shitty swinging, it's sucky swinging. You know what I mean? So, and we always just call the rookies up and have them sing a song or tell us a story about their first time, right? Something, to get the boys fired up. And God, man, that was some of the best times. We had the rookies do the conga line. We stopped 2 blocks away from the hotel in Houston, and we had them do the Congo line around the bus. And we were like, go around again. And they went around again, and we had the bus take off. So they had to walk back 2 blocks to the hotel. Just little stuff like that was times that you really look back and you really cherish.
Sounds like you'd have a good time DJing down the Jersey Shore with Joe. Maybe you could actually make that happen in the next few weeks here. But for you, Matt, what would you say was your game day eating routine? When are you eating? Are you eating before game, post game, middle of the game? And what would you be eating on those game days?
Yeah, I mean, you eat pretty clean. Well, for me at least, I felt like, especially as I got older, a lot of it is about recovery and just taking care. Again, man, I wanted to be the best player that I could and nutrition was a big part of that. So, I wake up in the morning and obviously eat my eggs, probably some oatmeal, throw some fruit in there, right? Like just kind of a balanced meal at every meal was what I try to stick to, right? Like I had my protein, my good protein. I had my typically try to go complex carbs, something that was slow digesting, and then a healthy fat in there. And then you're burning a lot of calories during the season. So it's like constantly snacking on protein bars or some kind of bar, whether it be not necessarily Nutri-Grain, but some kind of bar with nuts and stuff like that, trail mix. And then, every day I tried to do where it was, for me, I felt like the routine was one of the most important parts, right? Like I had everything written down where it's like, hey, this time I'm leaving at 1 o'clock. I'm going to the field. When I'm at home, when I'm on the road, I can leave a little bit later because batting practice is a little bit later, right? So I like to have my routine down, right? Like I would go to the field, I would eat a good meal. I would go in the hot tub, maybe do some contrast. I would go on the bike and start moving my body, foam roll, and then like start getting your body prepared for the day. And then you go into the cage, you get your swing ready, get your body ready to take BP, go and then take a little break, go into batting practice, take batting practice, shag some fly balls, go in, eat a good meal, and then obviously again you're preparing for the game. But it's every day. This is what you do. That you're just waking up and you're a machine. You do the same things and eat a lot of the same things, especially if you had a good game the day before. I'm going to eat exactly the same thing. If I had a crappy game, I'm probably going to change it up.
So what have you done in the scenarios where you have to go to the bathroom during a game? What do you run in between innings? Is there a bathroom closer to the dugout? What is that scenario like for you?
Those are the worst. Oh, those are the worst. Yeah, there's definitely times you're out there and they'll do like a pitching change and you're like, oh man, this is not good. You just start sweating bullets. You're like, and there's typically a bathroom, whether it be, right by the dugout or maybe up in the clubhouse. But I remember one time in the minor leagues where it was so bad, man. I was just like, you're just clinching. You're like, I'm just sweating bullets. And I think I was up third. I was coming up third. And I remember like we finally got the final out and I freaking sprinted, right? Like while you're clinching, you're just butts tucked up under you and you're running to the dugout and going to the restroom and I'm up third. And of course, like, you're doing your thing and the first hitter gets out quick, right? There was like 2 pitches, he's out. And so like I get out of the bathroom, I'm like trying to put my pants up and I'm on deck, right? And I'm like oh shit, putting my helmet on and like I don't even have my batting gloves on and I'm walking on deck. Of course, this guy gets out within like 1 or 2 pitches and I'm up there and no practice swing, no like get loose, anything. It was just like you're thrown into the fire. And I was like, all right, well, I'm trying to finish my batting gloves, getting on as I'm walking in the box. And I'm like, well, just be aggressive. If you get something you like, just grip it and rip it, And the second pitch I get, it was a fastball down and in, and I got to it and I hit it out. And I'm like, man, there might be something to this. I might have to do this a little bit more often. I wasn't thinking about anything, right? It was just like grip it and rip it.
Just don't think.
Just don't think. Just see it and hit it. And that one worked out well for me. But thank God I never had an episode where like I didn't make it to the bathroom because that would be really embarrassing.
So usually a player's decision to retire is difficult. For you, it kind of came in the natural timeline of sort of how life works. So talk about the F45 training and regarding baseball and working with those businesses and having more time to do so.
Yeah, honestly, man, it's such a difficult transition because this is what I've done as an athlete. This is what you do. You dedicate your whole life to doing this, right? And to getting to that level and then staying there. And it really takes over your identity. That's who you are. And so when you transition out of the game, there's just a big question mark around your identity and like who you are and who you want to be. And for me, it's challenging still to this day. I mean, this is the second year that I'm out, and I'm still struggling with, what's that long-term vision, right? What's that goal? What's that longer term goal that I really want to go achieve? And I think you figure it out as you go. You try different things, and you see what kind of gets you excited and what lights you up. And I was a guy that was always interested in business and finance and real estate. Really remember through the minor leagues, these 12-hour bus rides, I was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that would tell you about, like, hey, there's a difference between an asset and liability. Hey, here's how you need to think about your money. Because I heard the horror stories where 78% of athletes go broke within 5 years of retiring. And I didn't really want to be another one of those guys. So I started investing in real estate right after I got traded to Tampa Bay Rays, and found a guy that was investing in single family homes, where this was right after the housing market crashed. There were homes that were selling for 10 to 40K, like 10 to 50,000 in the Tampa area, and right outside of, like, the main South Tampa areas. And so, we would go in and we would renovate these homes, and he had different athletes that would kind of invest. And so honestly, I was very lucky to find him, and it was a great partnership. And we've kind of become best friends over the years, and he's built out his own fund of real estate development projects. He's crushing it. He's doing really well. And so for me, I wanted to, again, he was so good that I didn't have to focus. I didn't have to worry. He was, it was constant updates. It was like, hey, here's how the project's going. Here's where the numbers are. I mean, he was phenomenal. Just a great business partner. And so towards the end of my career, I wanted to kind of get into more business, and I wanted to learn more about business, as well as, hey, at the end of your career, your income goes from $1 million or whatever you're making, good amount, to zero. And you still have, like, your lifestyle just naturally creeps up. It's really hard not to, especially when you have a wife that wants a nice lifestyle, right? And so, that was kind of my answer, where in Tampa, I saw Orange Theory crush it. I did one class of Orange Theory. I hated it. I was like, I don't get it. Why would I pay to go run on a treadmill when I can run outside, or I could go to Crunch or one of these other LA Fitness to run on a treadmill for nothing. And so I worked with a lot of trainers over the years. I got to the point where I started training myself, just because at that point I knew what I had to do. I would have people come and train with me. I didn't even charge them. I was like, hey, I'm going to train. You guys are more than welcome to come. I'll be on the beach. I'm going to run it as a circuit, all functional movements, high intensity interval training. And I met a guy along the way that was basically like, hey, you're obviously in shape. You're an athlete. What do you do for fitness? I told him. He was like, man, that sounds a lot like F45. And so he's like, you ever heard of F45? I said, no. There was only one F45 in the area. It was up in Land O'Lakes. And so obviously, if you know Wesley Chapel, it's over by Wesley Chapel area. And so I went and took a class with my wife, and I was like, man, this is exactly how I train. This is great. Low impact, they're functional movements, higher intensity. You can train people at all different levels, right? Like, there's times where I work out in the same station as like a 50-something-year-old woman, and she's getting a good workout, and so am I, because we have different weights, right? And it's all functional movements. You bump the music, you get good playlists, and you have certified trainers that are going to watch your moves and make sure that you're not doing anything, that's going to hurt yourself. And so we picked up some of the best territories. We got downtown Tampa, downtown St. Pete. We opened a new Tampa, Brandon. And then our newest one was Tampa Heights. And so that's been a really good learning experience. Guardian was an e-com company. That's a baseball company, baseball products. I felt like I could come in and add value. I really like the leadership team over there. They're going through a little bit of restructuring, where they were a reseller of other products like Rawlings and Easton, and now they're really focused on building out their own brand, their own label and their own products, which is a little bit difficult transition. But yeah, I've always gravitated towards, business and finance and real estate. And now it's just a matter of, what does that longer term picture look like? And it's challenging, right? You figure it out as you go.
Joe, I think we need to get some Guardian baseball stuff for our softball team. And if Matt, you ever want to pick up a bat, come on down and be a ringer for our team. We keep going to the championship game and losing. Maybe you could put us over the edge. We're trying to get Ryan LaVarnway to play with us. So we'll have you two guys come down and we'll make some noise. That's for sure. But you make the decision to retire. You go into business. You also go into broadcasting. So you do stuff with the Rays for their games. You're doing stuff up in Secaucus for Apple TV with MLB Network. How did those opportunities come about for you to do stuff on camera? And do you have any hesitations to do that?
Yeah, again, I think you try to look at the options, right? You get the options on the table. Hey, do you want to go coach? I think I would enjoy coaching and working with guys, but like the commitment, the time commitment, I just wasn't ready to go towards. And I didn't think where it's like, hey, they're going to pay you 50, 60K and you got to give up. These guys are at the field longer than the players, because they got to do all the reports and they got to like present everything to you. And I was like, man, again, my daughter's 6 now. At the time she was 5. So I just wasn't ready to make that commitment. So I looked at the other options. Hey, I still love the game. I still want to stay around the game. What does that look like? The front office, I didn't really have an opportunity with the front office. I think that would have been another commitment of like full time. I still had the gyms that I was very heavily focused on. So the broadcasting thing was like, it gave me an opportunity to stay around the game, get paid to talk about baseball, which is incredible, right? And still have the flexibility of being able to, focus on the gyms and do other things and spend time with my daughter and family, which is obviously most important now. But the opportunity came around because I just knocked on the door until I got the opportunity, to be honest with you. Unless you're somebody that is, a superstar like Judge and these guys like Harper, I think of like Tom Brady, where it's like, if you're a superstar, like they're going to offer you anything, millions of dollars to come and be on TV and obviously help their network. But for me, I was known, I played for a lot of different teams, but I wasn't like a superstar, right? So I called, I text, I hit up a lot of people. My first year that I was retired, I couldn't even get in the booth, even with Tampa. And it was really frustrating. So I was like, guys, I'm from here, right? Like I played for the Rays for 5 years. I just want to get in the booth. Just like, let me in there. Like, let's talk some shop. And it was crickets. And so the offseason came around and I flew out to San Diego and got in front of Bally's, got in front of that team, networked, talked to people, and then had an interview, an audition with Bally's and their producer and stuff like that. And so they liked me. And then while I was over in San Diego, I got in front of MLB Network people as well. And they had an opportunity with Apple TV. And so I ended up basically agreeing to 25, 26 games for the Rays, Bally's, and then 15 games for Apple TV. And it was just one of those things where it was like, I want to do it. I want to try it. I want to see how good of a fit it is. I like the flexibility, I like to stay around the game, and we'll see what it leads to.
Certainly have a great personality for it. And you may not have been a superstar, but you were an all-star.
That's
Can't
right.
forget that. So this would be the part of the podcast where we would ask the I'm right moment. So what we mean by that, yada, yada, yada. So you already answered that before. So my last question for you. You retired only a couple of years ago. And the last couple of years, there's been this transition period with Major League Baseball. As you personally know, and as the players have known, Major League Baseball has done its best to try to shorten the period of games. With all the rule changes now and all the implementations, you're seeing for the first season here a significant time difference when it comes to how long these games are. So my question for you is, when you were a player, were there any tweaks or were there any ideas that you had heard bounced around clubhouses that baseball kind of listened to and ultimately granted the request of the players and actually changing part of the rules? And was there anything that you had reservations about at the beginning where you thought to yourself, I don't like this, or this is not going to work? And eventually, after seeing it implemented, you kind of came around to it.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that comes to mind is the shift. to be honest with you. I think the analytics have become so much more prevalent, especially even from the time that I got called up. I mean, God, the last 5 years, it was just the analytics and the data, like on every player. They had anything and everything that you wanted to know, and they were actually, sometimes they would be a little bit hesitant to give you too much information because they didn't want you to think. And for me, it was just so frustrating because I felt like the shift affected left-handed hitters a lot more than it did right-handed hitters, right? They can stand in short right field and still throw you out at first, right? Like they can't do that for a right-handed hitter. And so I was like, this has to get regulated. There has to be some kind of adjustment. If you're going to put 3-4 people over here, I don't care, then put them on the dirt, right? You can't have somebody in short right field. Like whatever it is, like we have to make that adjustment. And I was a big, obviously, proponent, and it just affected my career so much that I mean, honestly, it cost me a lot. It was a lot of frustration, a lot of, maybe potential future earnings, yada, yada. And I think that regulating the shift, I think, has been really good for the game, because you've seen some more hits. You've seen guys, Brandon Lau obviously comes to mind. Seager in Texas is having a phenomenal year. And so, like, God, I just remember, like, I'm literally trying to adjust my swing and like put my hands forward and push the ball the other way, as opposed to, all right, I'm going to drive this ball and, try to hit a double or homer. And now I'm just, using my hands, and I'm really just completely changing my game. And so, like, I hated it. It was very frustrating for me. The aspect of like shortening the game, I think, has been huge. I think it's been a really good adjustment for baseball. I don't really remember any conversations around that, other than the people complaining of how long the games were. And so I think they went back to the drawing board and like, hey, what adjustments can we make? There was a lot of controversy around the pitch clock. But I can tell you, I've watched so many games this year, and the pace of play is so much better. So much better. It's just more enjoyable to watch. It's much more engaging. There's constant, flow of the game, as opposed to you're just sitting there and waiting. You're like, oh my God, throw the ball already, right? So I think that's been huge. I'm a big fan of the changes, and obviously the final change of the bases being a little bit bigger. I think Acuna just stole his 60th base the other day, which is insane. So, that part has been exciting for baseball as well. But those were the biggest things, right? Like the analytics, the shift, the numbers, really having an impact on the game, and obviously certain players taking the brunt of it.
Great stuff, Matt. We appreciate your time. What we do here is we always give our guests the last words. So if there's anything else you would like to share or promote for yourself, by all means, go ahead. We really enjoyed your time. We enjoyed picking your brain. Good luck with everything moving forward. You're excellent on TV. Say hello to our friend LG Red. We haven't seen her in person in a long time. And we hope to have you on again in the future, man. But again, if you've got anything else for us, let us know.
Yeah, we'll have to do a follow-up on, maybe check back in a year's time. Hey, how's the broadcasting? How's businesses? How's everything going? It's been fun to learn and to try different things. So, I tell people I feel like a rookie all over again. But it's fun, I mean, that's how you grow. You try different things, try new things, and you have to be willing to be uncomfortable in order to grow. So, yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me on. It's been fun. Look forward to chatting and following up with you next time. And let's stay in touch.
All right, Matt, we appreciate your time. That's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right. For our very special guest, Matt Joyce, for my co-host, Joe Calabrese. I'm Nick Durst, and this has been You Know I'm Right.